Tonight, you are not arriving in the Middle Ages as a queen, or a saint, or a woman in a polished legend. You are arriving as yourself, with a face that catches light too easily, with features that seem to linger in other people's minds long after you have passed, with the kind of beauty that would be praised in a song and quietly feared in a village lane. In another world, that might have felt like a harmless gift. In this one, it feels more like a candle carried through a room full of dry straw. Lovely, yes, but dangerous in ways nobody will say plainly at first. So let the room around you grow dim and quiet. Let the noise of the day soften. Imagine the slow crackle of a medieval hearth, the weight of a wool blanket over your knees, the smell of smoke, bread, old wood, and rain drying on stone. You are safe here, only listening, only drifting. The danger belongs to the story, not to you, and the story begins with a truth that people in the Middle Ages would have understood almost at once. A beautiful face was never just a face. It was a sign to be interpreted, a temptation to be warned against, a promise, a threat, a mystery, a social complication, and sometimes the beginning of real trouble. You wake before dawn in a room still holding the cold of night. The shutters are closed, but a thin gray light has begun to gather around their edges. Somewhere in the house, someone is stirring the embers, and you hear the slow domestic sounds of another day beginning. Ash being shifted, wood being laid more carefully, a pot being lifted. A cough in the dark. The world is not yet fully awake, and for a brief, gentle moment, you are almost nobody in particular. Just a person under blankets in a chill room, listening to the quiet labor of morning. Then you rise. The floor is cold beneath your feet. Your gown is rough but clean. A folded kerchief waits near the basin. You pour a little water over your hands and face, and when you lean over the polished bronze that serves as a mirror, you see the familiar problem at once. Your skin is too clear in the weak morning light. Your mouth looks softer than the mouths around you. Your eyes, even half asleep, seem brighter than they ought to be in a century that mistrusts too much brightness in anything human. You do not linger. A woman who admires herself too openly can be called vain. A woman who never seems aware of her own face can still be called false. There is no easy innocence in beauty here. You bind your hair carefully and cover it well. Modesty, in the medieval world, is partly morality and partly camouflage. You choose the plainest dress that is still decent. Brown wool, no bright trim, no borrowed ribbon from a wealthier cousin, no unnecessary softness in the sleeves. If beauty cannot be erased, perhaps it can at least be quieted. That is how you begin most days, not by preparing to be admired, but by preparing to be survived. It is a subtle difference, but in this era, it matters more than almost anything. Outside, the village wakes in layers. First, the rooster, then the dogs, then the wheels, the doors, the bucket ropes, the call of someone already cross at the cold. Mist sits low over the lane. Smoke rises in patient blue streams from a row of thatched roofs. Somewhere bread is already baking. Somewhere milk is being poured from one rough pitcher into another. The world smells of damp earth, wood smoke, stale ale, onions, and hay. It should feel ordinary, and in some ways it does, but when you step into the lane, something shifts almost immediately. A man mending a fence glances up and glances twice. Two women speaking near the well pause very slightly. A young boy leading a goat slows without meaning to. It is never dramatic at first. No one points. No one announces anything. Medieval danger often begins in the smallest delay, the slightest repeat glance, the little hush that forms when attention moves to you, and no one wants to admit it has moved. You keep walking with a calm face and a measured pace, because any sign that you notice being noticed can itself become material for gossip. The village is small enough that everyone has known your face for years, and that somehow makes the matter worse. Beauty in a city might dissolve into a crowd. Beauty in a village becomes part of the weather. It is discussed by old women shelling peas in doorways. It is weighed by men pretending to talk about grain. It is compared against daughters, wives, cousins, and memories. In a place where everyone knows your mother's name, your father's trade, and the approximate number of hens your household keeps, your face cannot remain private property. It becomes common material, like a road, a rumor, or bad winter. You pass the baker's door and smell the first loaves cooling on boards. The smell is warm and rich, the kind of smell that would make another morning feel safe. The baker himself offers a curt nod. His wife, flowers still on her hands, looks at you with an expression that is not quite hostility and not quite weariness. Her husband is always a little too polite when you come near. Not improper. Never enough to accuse him of anything, but polite in a way that reminds her your existence has an effect she cannot control. You did not ask for that effect. You would happily trade it for anonymity and a cheaper loaf. But your preferences are not the point. In this world, other people's reactions arrive attached to your face, whether you invited them or not. At the market, beauty becomes something more active. Markets are places of looking. People inspect fruit, fish, cloth, knives, boots, and one another with equal seriousness. Nothing enters or leaves a market without being measured by someone. So when you move between stalls with your basket on your arm and your headscarf tied close, you are measured too. The woman selling onions notices your skin before she notices what you are buying. The cloth merchant offers you a softer piece of linen than your station usually earns. A young apprentice nearly drops a jar of honey because he was watching your expression instead of his hands. All around you, the market chatters and creaks and bargains, but your beauty keeps bending small moments away from their proper course. That is one of the oldest dangers of beauty in the medieval world. It disturbs arrangement. It makes people behave differently than they meant to. It shifts attention. It embarrasses the embarrassed, awakens vanity in the vain, insecurity in the proud, hunger in the restless, resentment in the overlooked. A face too lovely does not just attract admiration. It unsettles order, and medieval society, perhaps more than most, is built on the visible reassurance of order. Everyone is supposed to fit somewhere. Peasant, merchant, wife, daughter, widow, nunord, priest. Beauty slips across these categories too easily. It can make a merchant's daughter seem too radiant beside a minor noblewoman. It can make a field hand's son forget himself in front of a household he ought to fear. It can make rank feel less secure than rank wants to feel. You are buying turnips when you hear one woman murmur to another that your mother must have had powerful luck to produce a daughter who still looks untouched by life. It is not a compliment, not really. Medieval people often speak of beauty as if it ought to bear visible proof of humility. If your skin is clear, perhaps you are too protected. If your hair still shines under a plain veil, perhaps you have had advantages no one trusts. If your face remains lovely even in cold weather and hard work, perhaps there is something slightly unnatural in it. They may not say unnatural yet. They may still say fortunate. But fortunate can turn into suspicious very quickly once envy begins to warm its hands. You keep your eyes lowered and ask the price of the turnips as if you heard nothing at all. This is another small skill beauty teaches you. You must learn to survive comments without seeming wounded by them. Too much sensitivity makes you look proud. Too much indifference makes you look contemptuous. So you become expert in the narrow middle ground of harmless composure. You nod, you smile lightly, you thank people for things that were not kindness. You let insults pass as weather. Yet, every such exchange leaves a small trace. A tiredness, a little inward tightening. The market is full of vegetables, baskets, mud, and normal business. But for you, it is also a courtroom without walls. A peddler passing through from another town looks straight at you and says you ought to be at court, not among turnips. The women near you go very still. He laughs as if he has said something flattering. But flattery can be dangerous because it gives shape to thoughts other people were trying not to name. Court, advancement, ambition, improper notice. You can feel the words settle in the air like ash after a burst of fire. The peddler moves on. He has no idea what he has done. That is another burden beauty creates. Sometimes the people who stir trouble for you do not even remain long enough to watch it begin. By the time you leave the market, your basket is heavier and your mind is tired in that particular way caused by too much social calculation before noon. Yet there is comfort in the lane home. A dog asleep in weak sunlight, a child dragging a stick through mud, the sound of someone beating a rug over a low fence. These things help. History for sleep is made not only of tension, but of return. Return to the lane, return to bread and wood smoke, return to the plain work of living. Whenever the story grows sharper, the world itself offers quieter surfaces to rest the mind on. Your hand adjusts the basket, your shoes press into damp earth. Somewhere, a pot lid rattles. Life continues in rhythms older and safer than gossip. The church bells begin not long after, calling the village toward prayer and order. The sound rolls over roofs and puddles and bare winter branches with a gravity that belongs to all centuries. You go because everyone goes, because the church is not only a place of worship, but a place where belonging is measured. To absent yourself is to invite questions. To appear carelessly is another kind of invitation. So you wash your hands again. Smooth your sleeves, retie your veil, and walk beneath the cold stone shadow of the church where incense and doctrine wait together. Inside, the air is dim and cool. Candles make little gold islands in the gloom. Painted saints look serenely beyond the human faces beneath them. The stone holds centuries of breath, prayer, damp, and smoke. Kneeling women murmur through words. They know better than their own names. Men remove their caps, children fidget, and are pressed still. Here, the world feels ordered again. Yet for someone like you, the church never becomes entirely restful. Because beauty in a sacred space is not morally neutral. It becomes a question. A beautiful face can be praised as evidence of God's harmony, but it can also be feared as a snare for weaker souls. Medieval theology leaves room for both readings, and that means you are never fully safe beneath the arches. If the priest speaks of humility, you wonder whether the congregation will hear vanity in your skin. If he speaks of temptation, you wonder whose eyes will flick toward you. If he speaks of the fleeting nature of flesh, you feel almost accused for still possessing flesh that draws notice. The sermon may not mention beauty at all, but beauty has a way of inserting itself into every moral lesson once people have decided it matters. Today the priest speaks about pride, which would be harmless enough if pride remained only an inward sin. But in medieval communities, inward sins are often read outwardly. A woman who seems conscious of her beauty may be prideful. A woman who inspires distraction may become a stumbling block. A woman who accepts praise too softly may appear secretly pleased with it. A woman who dismisses praise too quickly may appear falsely humble. Around you, the congregation shifts and coughs and kneels on stone. The words move through incense and flicker in silence. You keep your face still and your gaze lowered. Still, you can feel yourself inside the sermon without ever being named. When the service ends, people do not rush. Medieval life rarely rushes, unless something is burning or dying. Instead, they gather in the churchyard and under the bare trees, trading little observations. A widow remarks that girls are vainer than they were in her youth. A man complains about grain dues. Two boys throw pebbles at a fence post. One woman, glancing toward you and then away, says that some faces bring more trouble than comfort into a household. She says it to no one. She says it to everyone. The sky is low and white. Your breath fogs in front of you. You tuck your hands into your sleeves and feel, once again, that old sensation of being interpreted by people who do not know how tiring interpretation is. And still, there is soup to stir when you get home. There are vegetables to peel. There is water to carry. This is the first return to safety. The first soft lowering of pulse after the church has sharpened the air. The house is dim and warm. Steam clouds the room. Your mother asks whether the onions were cheaper this week. Your father is still out. A cat winds around the table legs. Domestic life is often the kindest part of history because it insists on practical things. The knife must be cleaned. The broth must be salted. The fire must be fed. For a little while, your face becomes less important than the question of whether the turnips will soften before dark. You sit by the hearth and trim the roots. Light from the fire touches your knuckles and the curve of the bowl. Your mother hums under her breath, not a tune you recognize, just the shape of one. These are the moments that make sleep content breathe. Not the accusation, not the danger, but the soft, stubborn continuity around them. Even in a century that mistrusts female beauty, somebody still has to wash the spoon. Somebody still has to mend the hem. Somebody still has to remember where the better onions were stored before frost got at them. Ordinary life is the blanket laid over harsher truths. It does not erase them. It lets you rest between them. Your mother knows more than she says. She does not lecture. Medieval women rarely need long speeches, when half a glance can carry a whole inheritance of warning. She asks, too casually, whether anyone at market was troublesome. You answer, too casually, that the peddler had a loose tongue. She gives a small sound that means she understands the rest. Then, as if speaking only about the quality of cloth, she reminds you not to stand too long in doorways, not to let men linger near the well if nobody older is present, and never to let ladies think you pity them. It is practical advice, soft and unadorned, the advice of a woman who understands that a beautiful daughter in the medieval world does not merely live. She must be managed through other people's moods. The afternoon fades toward evening, and with it comes news that your father must travel the next day to the local lord's hall over a matter of trade. Woolen taxes and some quarrel about cart access near a winter road. The details hardly matter. What matters is that your father says you may come. Because the lady of the house has asked after the merchant's family, and because well-bred households notice absences as much as presences. You feel the quiet inside your body change. Noble halls mean another scale of danger. Village beauty is local. Court beauty becomes political. You sleep lightly that night. Wind taps once at the shutters. The fire settles down into red glow and black edges. Under your blanket, you think not of jewels or refinement, but of scrutiny in cleaner clothes. In villages, Envy is rougher and easier to recognize. In great houses, it wears manners. It arrives with a smile, a compliment, a seat assignment, a careful question about where your mother bought her linen. You know enough of the world to fear the polished version more. Morning comes pale and brittle. Frost edges the trough outside. The road to the Lord's Hall is long enough to let your mind drift into the quiet rhythm of wheels, hoofbeats, cold air, and hedges stripped by winter. You ride beside bales and ledgers and the smell of leather. Crows lift off from a field as the cart passes. The landscape is gentle in its own worn way. Bare trees, thin smoke from scattered cottages, a stream edged in white. It is easy in such moments to forget trouble and simply let the road lull you. This is another return to safety, laid into the story before the next tension arrives. Your shoulders loosen, your breath fogs and vanishes. For a little while you are only another traveler beneath a winter sky. Then the hall comes into view. It rises from the ground with the heavy calm of something used to obedience. Stone, timber, narrow windows, smoke drifting from high chimneys. Dogs bark as you enter the yard. Servants move quickly between kitchen and stable. A bell rings somewhere within. The air smells of horse, damp wool, wood smoke, and roasting meat. The household is busy but watchful. Great houses are always reading newcomers. Even before you step inside, you can feel yourself becoming information. The hall is warm enough to make your face flush at once, which only worsens things. Tapestries hang along the walls. Rushes lie fresh on the floor. Cups, knives, benches, and servants' motions all catch the firelight differently. The lady of the house receives your father with courtesy and receives you with something much more delicate. She smiles. Her smile says she is pleased to be gracious. Her eyes say she sees exactly what sort of disturbance a beautiful merchant's daughter might cause if left unattended in a hall full of sons, cousins, clerks, and idle younger knights. At once, the room seems to sort itself around your presence. One young man straightens. One older lady goes quieter. A servant girl glances at you, then at the lord's unmarried niece, and looks away again. This is courtly danger in its earliest form. Nobody has done anything, yet everyone is already adjusting their expectations, and beauty is the reason. In noble society, beauty is not only admired, it is assessed for its usefulness, its threat, its rank confusion, and its effect on alliances. A face can influence a household without ever speaking. That is why great houses fear it at supper. You are seated lower than the family, but visible enough. You keep your hands folded when they should be folded. You lower your eyes when lowered eyes are expected. The Lord speaks to your father about trade. A clerk reads numbers from a small wax tablet. Dogs shift by the hearth. Cups are filled and refilled. The ordinary machinery of noble life turns on, yet under it all runs the secondary current of attention. The younger son offers you salt before offering it to the girl beside you. A visiting night looks too long. The lady sees both things. You do not need to look up to know she sees them. Noble women survive by seeing before others do. Beauty is especially dangerous in such places because it can seem to move above its rank. A noble girl has beauty within an accepted frame. A merchant's daughter with equal or greater beauty unsettles the arrangement. She may inspire comparison where comparison is socially inconvenient. She may catch the eye of a man whose marriage prospects are meant to serve property, not impulse. She may remind older women of their own lost power over rooms like this one. And because noble society is trained to interpret everything, your existence here becomes not merely visual but strategic. After the meal, while servants clear platters and the hall softens into smaller conversations, the lord's niece approaches with two other ladies. She speaks sweetly enough, asking whether village life is quiet this season and whether the roads were muddy. The questions are harmless. The tone is not. She is measuring your speech, your accent, your confidence, your degree of self-awareness. A woman can dislike another woman for many reasons, but one of the oldest is this: you have entered a room and changed its balance without permission. That never feels fair to the people already standing in it. You answer carefully, not too clever, not too shy, never eager. Medieval female conversation in noble spaces is often a dance of concealed teeth. Too much brilliance is dangerous. Too much softness is dangerous. Too much warmth can be read as ambition. Too much reserve can be read as contempt. You feel yourself moving through these calculations, the way someone moves through a dark room already known by memory. Slowly, quietly, without wanting to knock anything over. By the time you return to the guest chamber, you are exhausted in spirit more than body. The chamber is small but clean. Wax drips down a little stand beside the bed. Through the shutters you can hear stable noises softening into night. Your hands are cold again despite the fire below. And here, finally, comes another return to safety, not because you are entirely safe, but because solitude is softer than scrutiny. You unpin your veil. You brush ash from your sleeve. You sit on the edge of the bed and listen to the house settling around you. Boards creak. Someone laughs faintly below. A dog gives one last bark. The hall that felt so perilous at supper now sounds almost sleepy. This is the shape of the story. Tension, then hush. Always hush after tension. The next morning, the danger takes another form. A woman from the household, old enough to have no illusions about beauty, approaches you while you stand in a corridor lit by pale winter light. She remarks, in a voice almost kind, that pretty girls often find themselves married higher than they expect and happier than they deserve, or else nowhere at all. The sentence hangs between you like a piece of embroidery stitched in warning rather than thread. Marriage, of course, marriage would become part of the matter. In the medieval world, beauty and marriage are bound together so tightly that one almost drags the other behind it. By the time you and your father leave the hall, you understand that your presence there will not simply be forgotten. Someone will mention you later. Someone will ask who you were. Someone will wonder aloud whether the merchant's daughter might suit some widower, steward, younger son, or ecclesiastical household looking for a bride with good breeding but no expensive pride. Nothing may come of it at once, but beauty often works slowly in history. A glance today becomes a suggestion next month. A suggestion becomes a visit. A visit becomes pressure. Pressure becomes destiny. The road home is cold and bright. Frost still clings to the shaded parts of the fields. Your father, sensible man that he is, says nothing for a long time. Then he remarks that the Lord's household seemed especially attentive. You look at the road. He says no more, because fathers in this world often know when silence is kinder than comment. Still, the silence is full of thought. Your beauty has entered the realm of strategy now, and once that happens, it rarely returns to being merely ornamental. A week later, the messenger comes. He arrives under the respectable cover of estate business. His boots are muddy. His cloak smells of wet horse and cold air. He speaks first of wool tallies and tenancy disputes, and the uncertain condition of a bridge not far from the mill road. Then, when the respectable topics have done their work, he turns to the real matter. A minor baron, recently widowed, is in search of a suitable bride. Not too proud, well-mannered, sound family, good reputation. The Baron has heard favorable things. That is how danger enters the house. Not with swords, with favorable things. Your mother's face hardens almost imperceptibly. Your father's hands become very still. The messenger is careful, almost gentle. He is not cruel, but he is the carrier of a system in which your beauty has become currency. The Baron's age is described as mature, his household as substantial, his prospects as comfortable, his expectations as reasonable. These words are supposed to soothe. They do not. Reasonable, in medieval marriage language, can mean obedience. Comfortable can mean trapped in a larger building. Mature can mean old enough to have learned how to win compliance without ever needing to shout. When the messenger leaves, the room feels altered. The hearth is the same hearth. The spoon on the table is the same spoon. The onions still need trimming. Yet the atmosphere has become thinner somehow, as if every ordinary object now knows it may soon belong to a different life. Your beauty has done what everyone always implied it might do. It has brought advancement to the door, and no one in the house is comforted by the fact. The Baron is not unknown to you. Medieval people, even when they travel little, know each other through rumor with startling precision. You know he owns land enough to matter. You know his hall stands near marshy ground and smells of damp stone in all seasons. You know he is not considered a monster, which is not the same as being considered kind. You know his first wife died after a short illness or a bad fall, depending on who tells it. You know servants fear his temper when wine has been poor or weather worse. You know that in some households, these facts would not stop a marriage. In other households, they would hurry it. This is where beauty becomes a bargaining chip so plainly that even the kindest people cannot pretend otherwise. Your father speaks of security. Your mother speaks of caution. A cousin, hearing of the offer, speaks of fortune. All three are telling the truth from different angles. That is what makes the medieval marriage market so exhausting to think about. Nobody is entirely wrong. A beautiful daughter could indeed protect a family from hard winters by making a good match. She could indeed rise in status. She could indeed regret it every day of her life that night. The fire burns lower than usual because no one remembers to feed it on time. You sit near it with your hands folded, feeling your future discussed in tones meant to sound practical. There is no great cruelty here. No one is treating you carelessly, and yet you feel the old sorrow of being turned symbolic again. A daughter's face, a household's prospects, a family's chance. Beauty in the medieval world often injures most sharply through forms of love that have been trained to think strategically. Your parents want your safety. The system wants your usefulness. Beauty confuses the two until they are hard to separate. You sleep badly and wake into another gray morning. Outside, the world is still full of small, peaceful things. Water steaming a little in the bucket, the smell of oats, a hen scratching under the fence. These details matter. They rescue the story from becoming all pressure and no breath. So you go out to the yard and shake a rug and feel the cold wake your face. The rug spills dust into pale sunlight. The air smells clean and sharp and almost sweet where frost has not melted. Here, alone for a moment, you can remember that life consists not only of marriages proposed by absent men, it also consists of rugs and hens and cold fingers and a lane half frozen in shadow. But the village never lets anything remain private for long. Before noon, 2 women at the well have already heard that a lord is interested. By evening, the story has acquired curtains and silver cups and a carriage you have never seen. Beauty feeds rumor because rumor likes to dress beauty in finer cloth than reality usually provides. Some women look at you with envy sharpened into active dislike now. Others with a kind of pity, a few with practical curiosity, as if calculating whether your rise might improve the road, the market, or their own daughter's chances by comparison. Even your face at the well begins to seem like public property. The church becomes worse after that, not because the priest says anything directly, because everyone now hears the old teachings through the new fact of your situation. Humility, obedience, worldliness, vanity, marriage as duty, the danger of feminine influence, the fleeting nature of earthly beauty. Every theme seems to gather around you, and beauty, once again, becomes not merely admired or envied, but moralized. If you accept the match, some will say your beauty finally found its proper function. If you refuse it, some will call you proud. Pride and beauty are a particularly unforgiving pair in medieval minds. One is thought to flow naturally into the other. Your mother, wiser than all of them, sends you for herbs on a wet afternoon, simply to get you out of the house. The lane is muddy. Rain clings to bare branches. The herb seller's stall smells of rosemary, mint, damp sackcloth, and old wood. The old woman there has known every family in the district longer than memory trusts itself. She studies your face while weighing out sage, and then, without looking up, asks whether you mean to become too grand to buy your own herbs. You smile and say not at all. She grunts. Then she adds that pretty girls should beware not only of men's desire but of women's explanations. It is an odd phrase, and you ask what she means. She says only that people always prefer a reason for beauty because plain luck offends them. That small sentence stays with you. People want reasons, medieval people especially. A face too lovely invites explanation. Perhaps your mother had rare blood. Perhaps your household keeps secret remedies. Perhaps you wash with something finer than ordinary rainwater. Perhaps you use rose infusions. Perhaps your brightness is vanity rewarded by the devil. Perhaps you are touched by fortune in a way that insults everyone less fortunate. Once people start wanting reasons, beauty begins to slide towards superstition. And superstition, in a frightened century, can become dangerous very quickly. It starts harmlessly enough. Someone jokes that your complexion would survive even plague weather. Someone else remarks that your eyes look too clear after a sleepless week. An old man says some women are born with more power in the face than is good for those around them. They smile when they say these things. They laugh. But medieval suspicion likes to arrive under cover of humor, because humor gives it room to test itself. If people laugh along, the thought is planted. If they grow quiet, the speaker can always pretend it meant nothing. You are careful with grooming, no obvious salves, no berry stain on the lips, no rosemary rinse used so often that anyone notices. Yet caution can only do so much. In the wrong mood, even cleanliness becomes suspicious. If your veil is fresh, perhaps you care too much. If your skin is soothed after winter wind, perhaps you know things a respectable girl should not. If your hair remains soft beneath plain linen, perhaps you use hidden preparations. Medieval beauty is dangerous, partly because it can never fully prove its innocence. Anything that makes you lovely may be read either as blessing or deceit. The trouble grows worse when disease begins creeping through nearby villages. At first it is only rumor, and rumor in the medieval world is almost its own climate. A fever 3 miles off, a household gone suddenly quiet, bells tolling too often in a market town, a cart seen traveling at odd hours. Then the fear arrives before the illness does, and fear changes the meaning of every face. People begin looking not for beauty, but for signs, redness, pallor, hollows under the eyes, a cough hidden in the sleeve. But they also look for those who remain too untouched. Beauty in a time of sickness can seem offensive when others are drawn and exhausted. Your face looks like a question. By the time the first true fever hits the edge of your village, the atmosphere has changed completely. Smoke hangs low because people burn whatever they think might cleanse the air. Rosemary, juniper, old rags, damp straw. The churchyard fills more often. Doors stay shut. Mothers pull children inside sooner. You carry water from the well and feel every eye measuring whether your hands shake, whether your breathing sounds different, whether your skin has lost its color. But your face, cruelly for your own safety, still looks like itself. You are tired, you are frightened. Yet fear does not always show kindly on beautiful features. Sometimes it only makes them more striking. A woman whose son has taken ill watches you draw water and says, not loudly but not softly either, that some people seem favored. No one answers. The word favored lies in the air like a thrown needle. Favored by God, favored by luck, favored by something darker. In plague weather, people want unfairness to have a shape. Beauty can become that shape very easily. If you remain healthy longer than someone expects, they may not praise your good fortune. They may resent it or worse, interpret it. You lower your bucket, feel the rope rough against your palms, and say nothing. This is no time for defense. Defensiveness sounds like guilt to frightened ears. Instead, you offer to bring broth later to the woman's house. She refuses. Her refusal is a mercy. In a way, if she had accepted and her son worsened, your kindness might have been rewritten as contamination. In hard seasons, beauty turns every action into risk. Too much distance makes you cruel. Too much tenderness makes you suspicious. The safest course is often the narrowest, loneliest one. But history always gives you small returns to safety if you know where to look. In the days that follow, you spend more time spinning. The wheel hums, fibers draw thin between your fingers. Afternoon light crawls across the floorboards. Your mother counts dried beans into bowls. Outside, the world is anxious. Inside, thread still has to be made. This is one of the great sleepy truths of the past. Even during fear, the domestic motions continue. Wool does not care about rumor. Thread does not envy beauty. The wheel only asks to be turned gently and without haste. The plague passes near your household, but not through it. At least, not at first. This should feel like relief. Instead, it feels like exposure. Other faces grow drawn. Yours remains painfully recognizable. Beauty, which once threatened your peace through admiration and marriage, now threatens it through survival. Some of the village women look at you with a terrible new mixture of resentment and dread, as if your untouched appearance has become evidence of a hidden bargain. Medieval scapegoating is often born from that precise mixture. They cannot bear randomness, so they assign meaning. At the herb stall, the old woman says quietly that you should stop using anything scented for a while, even if it is harmless. Not because she believes nonsense, but because frightened people trust their suspicions more than their senses. You thank her. She slips a little bundle of thyme into your basket without charging you. This is one of those human kindnesses that keep the past from becoming unbearable. Women can police each other, yes, but they can also recognize danger faster than men and help each other step around it. Not every look is hostile. Some are warnings, some are shields. When the sickness eases, the village exhales in stages. Doors open again. Washing appears on lines. Chickens sound louder than they did before. The lane is still the lane. The bread still smells like bread. And yet everyone has changed a little. Beauty after sickness takes on a different color. It no longer looks only tempting or ambitious. It looks precarious. Mortal, almost insulting in its persistence. You feel this in the way people regard you now. Not all the old envy is gone, but it has been complicated by the knowledge that any face, lovely or plain, can be altered by fever in a week. For a little while life softens. You help in the fields one morning, because the air is finally mild and the ground workable again. Your hem gets muddy. Your hands smell of barley and damp soil. Sun warms the back of your neck through the veil. This is another return to safety. Open sky, work, earth. A field does not gossip in words. It only receives footprints and wind. Beside you, a farmer's wife talks about seeds and geese, and a roof that needs mending. These are blessed subjects. They ask nothing from your face. You carry bundles. Feel your shoulders ache pleasantly. And for an hour or two you are just another body doing necessary work. Then Sir Roland rides past. He is young enough to still believe in the theatrical version of his own importance. His horse is handsome. His boots are polished. His smile is practiced. He reins in because he has seen you. And the whole field seems to feel it at once. The farmer's wife beside you lowers her eyes. The boys further off go very still. A knight's attention in a village is never merely personal. It is a disturbance. He greets you with elaborate courtesy, asks your name as though he does not already know it, and says the day is brighter for your presence. The line is polished enough that he has certainly said some version of it before. This is the medieval nightmare hidden inside chivalry. From a distance, knightly admiration looks flattering. Up close, it feels like another way beauty can become dangerous. A powerful man trained by stories to believe pursuit is noble can turn ordinary existence into a performance you never agreed to join. If you smile too warmly, you encourage him. If you answer too coolly, you insult him. If you retreat too quickly, you challenge him to continue. Romance in unequal societies is rarely as gentle as poetry claims. You answer with modest restraint. He praises your good sense. He offers to escort you home. You decline. He takes the refusal as part of the dance. That is the problem. Men raised on tales of noble ladies and patient pursuit often mistake female discomfort for stylized modesty. Beauty teaches you this early. Some admiration does not listen. It only persists in better clothing. For the next few weeks, Roland appears more often than chance can explain. Once near the chapel road, once by the stream, once with a hawk on his glove, as if even his timing wants to seem accidental and impressive at once. The village notices. How could it not? A knight's horse cannot pass quietly. Children mention him. Women hear his name, and then your name in the same breath. Your father becomes grim. Your mother becomes very calm, which is far more alarming. Roland has not behaved outrageously. In some versions of the story, that would make him harmless. In real medieval life, it makes him difficult to oppose. He remains just respectful enough that complaint would look like pride. This is how beauty becomes a social trap. You cannot publicly welcome him. You cannot publicly denounce him without proof of offense. Meanwhile, everyone around you begins assigning intention. Some think you encouraged it. Some think you are lucky. Some think you are in danger. Most think several contradictory things at once. You continue fetching water, trimming leaks, visiting church, shaking linen, as if life were normal. But under every normal gesture now lies the possibility that Roland's attention may convert into a rumor. A challenge, a marriage scheme, or a grievance among people above your station. And still the world insists on softness too. One evening you walk by the stream after rain. The water is high and slow, carrying bits of leaf and pale light. Frogs mutter near the bank. The whole scene is green and silver and hushed. Even a troubled life contains such moments, and sleep storytelling needs them. You stand there with wet grass brushing your skirt and let the air cool your face. No one is watching for once. No horses, no bells, no speeches about virtue, just water and reeds and a long, patient evening. In a better world, beauty would be safest in places like this, where nothing human is trying to use it. But medieval life is always ready with one more complication. A painter passing through the district hears of your face. He is not a famous master, only a capable artisan attached now and then to churches and households that can pay for painted panels. He sees you briefly outside the market and later asks, through careful intermediaries, whether your family might allow him to study your features for a saint in an altarpiece. The request ought to be flattering. It is instead unsettling. In the medieval world, art is not innocent of theology. A beautiful face placed into sacred space can become a problem for everyone involved. Your father hesitates. Your mother dislikes the idea at once. The painter insists your face has the serenity required for a holy image. That should sound complimentary. Yet, even the compliment carries risk. If your likeness becomes recognizable in church art, some will call it vanity. Others will call it impropriety. Some may simply say the painter was bewitched by prettiness instead of guided by devotion. Beauty, once more, moves from private burden into public symbol. In the end, the painter is allowed only a brief study in the workshop of a local patron. Under supervision, with all propriety observed. The workshop smells of glue, chalk, oil, and old timber. Light enters from high windows in one soft angle. Panels lean against the wall like silent witnesses. You stand still while the painter studies how shadow falls near your mouth and how the kerchief changes the line of your brow. He barely speaks. That is almost more disturbing than flattery would have been. In his silence, your beauty becomes form rather than social trouble. Plain, light, balance, shape. It is strangely calming for a moment, as if art might turn danger into order. But art cannot save you from interpretation either. When the painter leaves, the talk begins before the paint is even mixed. Why should a merchant's daughter serve as a saintly model? Will a congregation know the face? Is that not pride? Is that not a confusion of earthly loveliness with heavenly purity? The old women in the churchyard have enough to say about your face when it only walks to market. Imagine what they will say if it looks down from above the altar rail. Even the painter grows nervous. He asks whether your family would prefer the features softened, changed, made less recognizable. You almost laugh at the irony. For years you have wanted exactly that from life itself. The panel is finished months later. You see it only once before it goes to its chapel. And there you are, though not entirely you, more serene, more distant, more untouchable. The painter has translated your human face into something gentler and less dangerous, yet not enough to fool those who know. Two women kneeling near the side aisle whisper when the cloth is lifted. One smiles, the other looks offended. Beauty in art is no safer than beauty in the lane. It still unsettles. It still provokes. It still invites the old medieval fear that earthly charm may be drawing attention from God. By now, your story has passed through nearly every chamber where beauty could become perilous. Village envy, church scrutiny, noble calculation, marriage pressure, plague suspicion, knightly pursuit, artistic risk. And the exhausting thing is that none of these troubles required you to do anything remarkable. You did not scheme. You did not flaunt. You did not chase power. Most of the time, you merely existed in possession of a face other people could not stop reading. That is what makes beauty dangerous in this world. It does not only attract, it invites meaning. Meaning is heavy. It settles on you in ways no one around you fully understands. When you wash your face at night, you are not preparing for admiration. You are trying to remove a day's worth of other people's stories from your skin. When you cover your hair, you are not being pious only. You are negotiating visibility. When you answer politely, you are not simply well-mannered. You are protecting yourself from future accusations you cannot yet hear. The medieval world praises female virtue, but what it often demands is female management. Beauty multiplies that demand until a woman's whole life can feel like a long act of staying legible in the safest possible way. And yet, even here, life is not without tenderness. There is the child in the lane who once told you your veil looked like cloud. There is the old woman who slipped time into your basket. There is your mother, who never once asked you to apologize for the face you happened to be given. There is your father, awkward but decent, trying to speak of marriage as if it were solvable by inventory, and roads because he cannot bear to speak of fear directly. There are mornings in the field, evenings by the stream, small bowls of soup, warm bread, mended sleeves, a cat in a chair by the fire. History does not become sleep-worthy because it is gentle. It becomes sleep-worthy because even its harder truths are woven through by ordinary softness. Years pass more slowly in this world than modern minds often imagine. Reputation ripens, attention fades in one quarter and gathers in another. Roland is eventually married elsewhere, though not before causing enough talk to weary everyone. The Baron takes a different bride after a season of negotiation your father skillfully delayed. The altarpiece remains. After a while, fewer people speak of your resemblance to the saint, because communities grow used to almost anything if given enough winters. Beauty itself changes too, though not as quickly as some once hoped and others once feared. You remain lovely, but now the loveliness is threaded with maturity. That changes the kind of danger, but does not end it. In youth, beauty threatened disorder because it was tied to desire and marriage. As you move a little beyond first youth, beauty begins to threaten in different ways. It may still inspire envy, but now it also inspires commentary about preservation. How well she has lasted, what she uses, whether age will punish her later. Medieval women live under the same relentless scrutiny modern women know too well, only under heavier theology and thinner privacy. To age too quickly is failure. To remain beautiful too long is suspicious. There is no peaceful treaty offered between a woman and time. Not publicly, you begin to notice mirrors less, or rather, you notice them differently. A basin in winter light, a polished spoon, the darkened leaded glass of a chamber window at dusk. Your face no longer startles you as it once did. That in itself is a kind of freedom. The world may still see symbol before self, but you are slowly learning to see self first. Not always, not perfectly, but enough to rest sometimes inside your own body without imagining the whole village around it. This is one of the quiet rewards of surviving attention. Eventually, your own gaze becomes gentler than everyone else's. The younger girls now growing into beauty of their own watch you the way you once watched older women searching for instructions nobody says aloud. You find yourself offering them the same advice your mother gave you, though with more mercy. Keep company when you can. Be careful with laughter around idle men. Never let envy find you unguarded. But also do not disappear entirely. Do not let the world persuade you that your face is a crime. That is perhaps the hardest lesson of all. Medieval society will gladly use beauty against women, while also demanding that they embody it. To survive, you must learn the impossible middle path of neither flaunting nor hating what you are. One winter evening, helping a younger cousin tie her veil, you see her studying her own reflection with worry. She asks whether beauty is always trouble. You think of everything the years have taught you. The market, the church, the hall, the well, the stream, the painter's panel, the messenger's boots on your floor, the knight's horse in the lane, the women's glances, the soft rooms that saved you between those moments. At last you tell her the truth in the gentlest way you can. Beauty is not trouble by itself. It becomes trouble in the wrong hands, in fearful communities, in proud households, in hungry minds. The trouble is rarely the face. It is what people decide a face must mean. She considers that, and nods as if she only half understands. Of course she only half understands. Some things are learned only by living under them for years. Now the village is quieter around you. Not entirely kind. Villages are almost never entirely kind, but quieter. People have found newer topics, newer dangers, newer marriages to discuss. Beauty, after enough repetition, becomes part of the furniture of a life. Still visible, still influential, less shocking. You can go to market without every stall changing temperature. You can kneel in church and feel only one or two glances instead of many. This would have felt like a miracle once. Now it feels simply like time doing one of the few merciful things it ever does. And at last, toward the end of the story, the night returns. You step outside after everyone has slept. The door closes softly behind you. The lane is empty. The roofs are dark shapes under a pale sky. Frost whitens the fence rails. The church tower stands still and old and no longer interested in you at all. Smoke lingers low from dying fires. The world is silver, blue, and almost dreamlike. In moonlight, beauty loses some of its social sharpness. The whole village is beautiful now. The trough, the thatch, the frozen puddle, the rough gate, even the old cart tilted near the wall has a kind of grace in this light. Moonlight is generous that way. It spreads loveliness so widely that no single face has to carry all the burden of it. You breathe in cold air and let it settle through you. No one is watching. No one is comparing. No one is deciding whether your face means luck or pride or danger or ambition. There is only the quiet, the little creak of a branch, the faint rustle of straw somewhere in a stable, your own breath moving in and out of the dark. For the first time in the whole long story, beauty feels almost simple again. Not because it has ceased to be complicated in daylight, but because night has taken it back from other people. Night does that. It lowers the eyes of the world. If someone were to ask, centuries later, whether being too pretty was truly dangerous in medieval times, the answer would be yes, but not always in the dramatic way they might expect. Not every beautiful woman was accused. Not every lovely face led directly to ruin. Yet beauty could indeed sharpen every ordinary pressure placed on a woman's life. It could attract envy, intensify gossip, invite moral scrutiny, distort marriage prospects, excite male attention, provoke female rivalry, and become suspicious in times of fear. It could make a life more visible than was safe. And in a world with little privacy and many meanings, visibility itself could be dangerous. But that answer belongs to the waking mind. For now, as the story settles, what remains is softer. A medieval lane under stars, a house gone quiet, a face no longer carrying the weight of everyone else's reading. The day is over. The market has emptied. The church is dark. The noble hall is far away. The baron's offer never became your prison. The night has ridden elsewhere. The saint in the chapel keeps her painted calm. The village women have gone home to their own fires and their own unfinished thoughts. Even envy sleeps eventually. You stand there another moment, wrapped in wool and moonlight, and feel how small a human life really is beneath the sky. Small, and therefore strangely gentle. The world that spent years trying to make meaning out of your face is still only a village. The century that seems so heavy is still only time. Beauty, like youth, like fear, like gossip, like desire, passes through human hands and altars as it goes. Nothing holds its sharpest edge forever. When you go back inside, the room greets you with the old ordinary comforts that outlast nearly everything. The smell of ash, the rough blanket, the low red glow in the hearth, a stool, a cup, a folded cloth waiting for morning. These objects never cared whether your face inspired admiration or suspicion. They cared only for use. There is something deeply calming in that. A bowl is a bowl. Bread is bread. A blanket warms whoever lies beneath it. History can be cruel, but use is honest. Domestic things are honest. They ask nothing from beauty. You lie down at last. The blanket is heavy and warm. Wind touches the shutters once, and then moves on. Somewhere in the rafters, wood settles with a small, dry sound. Your hands, no longer busy, rest quietly against the wool. You think of all the rooms your face has passed through. The market, the church, the hall, the workshop, the field, the well. And it seems almost impossible that one human face could carry so many consequences in one lifetime. Yet, that is what the medieval world did. It made surfaces into signs and signs into destinies. You endured it as softly as you could. Now there is nothing to endure. The candles are low. The floor is still. The old social meanings have no power here in the near dark. No one can accuse a sleeping woman of vanity. No one can blame a sleeping face for drawing attention. No one can turn a closed eye into a threat. Sleep is perhaps the only state in which beauty fully escapes interpretation. It belongs to no one then, not to desire, not to envy, not to theology, not to family strategy, only to rest. So let the medieval night close around the story. Let the church bells fall silent. Let the muddy lane empty under frost. Let the noble hall become only a faraway warm square of memory. Let the herb bundles dry in the rafters, undisturbed. Let the market stalls fold into shadow. Let the horse tracks soften at the edge of the road. Let the painted saint look down on sleeping stone. Let the whispers thin and vanish. Let the judgments cool like embers after midnight. And let the beautiful face at the center of all this trouble become, at last, simply a sleeping face in a quiet room. The fire breathes once, twice, and settles lower. Outside, the roofs gleam faintly. Inside, the blanket holds its weight. Your breath slows. The century recedes. The danger loosens. The story drifts, and the dark, which asks so little of anyone, becomes kind.